Thank you, everyone. This is the final session, I guess, the final session of the PBL track. Now, when Ravi of ScooNews had actually sent an email to all of us, he mentioned PBL, I don't know if you all noticed this, but he mentioned PBL as projects, places, people, and beyond. Right? And of course, in essence, it is project-based learning. But what you would have picked up over the last 2 days is that it really involves people, places, and of course, beyond, which you've all been discussing. And the debate is themed as pragmatics versus optimists. So clearly the whole discussion is about whether this really can be applied practically in your schools, or is this just theoretical, and while it sounds very good, when we actually get down to doing it, is it going to have a little bit of a challenge? And that's what we're attempting to do here. Like Akshal said, and Akshal, frankly, we have a third person missing. We have two of us, but honestly, I'm in a mood to just check with the crowd. There is a third seat slot available for a debate. Any takers? Anybody wish to just do a spot? Seating along. Okay, yeah, Vardhan, you're not allowed. You're not allowed. You can't.
All of us have mics very close to us. So you call on us when you want to. You can call on us whenever you want to.
No, I'll do that. But right now, I'm just looking for a person. I can of course choose, but I would like a volunteer. Anyone willing? Oh, okay. We have two of them. No, it's okay. Actually, right, both of you are in. Jaspreet, I saw you first, but I saw him too. So why don't you just take a second and just introduce yourselves, and then we can move into the discussion. Vardhan, what's the time limit? 1 o'clock or? Okay. ठीक है, चलो.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kanungo. I head the Narayana Education Group as a director. And prior to this, I was with Indus International Schools as a co-founder, and we set up 12 schools. And we did a lot of work towards project-based. And I also set up a leadership school, which is still in Bangalore. It's on our 10-acre plot, where children come for a camp, a 6 days camp in a year, from grade 4 to grade 12. And we conduct various activities. Basically competencies, we teach them on competencies, and reflection is basically guided reflection, and how children transform themselves from a classroom behavior to an outdoor behavior. And when they return back to the class, there is a change in their behavior.
So I think we're opening up the sequence.
Okay, sorry.
So this is hold on to the introduction right now. Jaspreet?
I'm Captain Jaspreet, and I'm the academic director of the Devidutta group of schools. So that's my introduction. I have fairly 33 years of experience now into the education, including my service in the education corps of the army.
Great. So thank you, Jaspreet, Colonel Satya, welcome. There's of course Kamaljeet ma'am and Devidutta out here. So these are the 4 folks with whom we'll discuss. Before we start, sir, congratulations, you got an award yesterday.
Thank you very much.
So congratulations. Okay, so I think, if you really look at what we've all been going through for the last 2 days on the PBL track, just to recap, we've got we of course had the adventure in PBL shared by Parminder. I don't know how many of you attended that, but that was very interesting. We had an excellent fireside chat that Lieutenant General Kulkarni did with Arijit and Dr. Umesh Gupta, and this is about the design of PBL relative to the learning context or the learning outcomes that each of you are running in your schools. Then we had a talk by Akshal on how PBL can be applied to entrepreneurship, if I'm not mistaken. The design of PBL in
We actually built a project where everyone became an
entrepreneur. That's right. And of course, today we heard Vardhan talk about some brilliant case studies and got us all to do some exercises. Now, the point is, all this probably would have made all of us feel that PBL is fantastic and there's a lot of work that we can do through the PBL route. But the idea now is to discuss whether this is really applicable, possible, and if not possible, what are the challenges? What are the ways to overcome that? And given that we've got 4 different institutions that are now with us, probably what we hear from them can help us to try and get a little more finality into this whole discussion that we've been having over the last 2 days. So with no further ado, I just want to kick off by asking, Devidutta, I'm going to start with you. Your school chain, I remember there was a line, I mean, all school chains have wonderful lines, right, in their websites. And rightly so, because that's the way you try and show what your school is. Your school chain has a line which says, the central idea is learning by doing. Okay, and when you say learning by doing, I'm presuming to a large extent it is about practical, experiential, project-based, etc. That's what it typically reflects. Is that what you actually end up doing in the school, or is that, sorry, but is that like a pitch?
Yeah, so I just, before answering that question, go back a little bit. So my experience with schools has been in various different kinds of schools. So I worked as an academic director for a group of schools called Oakridge, which was an IB school. And then subsequently with the Radcliffe group of schools, a very typical CBSE school. So my experience with working with two extremely different schools told me that these two schools are very different animals. And what led me then to understand is that many of the things that we believe are great educational practices many times do find it difficult to take roots in some of the most standard, very structured schools that we all know, because the structures in the school themselves are of a kind which do not allow these thoughts to take roots. What happens is, specifically in both boutique schools or IB schools, the structures and processes are the kind of mindset of the people that are there are already of a kind which allows any new idea to be taken up very quickly. And the processes and structures in the standard CBSE schools are so regimented that it's very difficult to put those things through. So, so for me the challenge in the assignment that I did with Radcliffe was, how do you take a very structured CBSE school with normal 45 periods hi karna hai, 35 periods ka karna hai, the teachers are 38 or 30 periods workload. How do you then get the concepts and the core fundamentals of maybe a more experiential learning pedagogy and bring them into this? So what that journey told me was that, number one, that first of all, the moment we start treating these extra things like PBL, etc. as co-curricular additional activity that we do over and above, that doesn't work, because it just fizzles out. It requires too much effort to keep that into the system, and it fizzles out. So you need to have a process where you are bringing it into the regular mainstream class. Number one. Second is, you have to have a lot of parent mindset change, because it should not, the parents also see this as extra kuch hai. So, if you are doing an assessment, the parents are all serious, right? If you are half-yearly exam, the parent is all serious. You are doing an art exhibition, kuch to ho raha hai, right? That mindset has to get changed, and you cannot change it by just talking to the parent. You need to incorporate that into your core assessments. So things which are critical to the parent, like your report card, your assessment structures, they need to also talk about project-based learning. And unless that changes come in, you are not going to make any major difference with what you are doing. So what we did to kind of win my job to transform what we had, a very structured and good CBSE schools, but into schools where more experiential project-based learning can take roots. So we did a few things. One is we appointed certain coordinators, because what we realized was all our coordinators were very, very deeply involved in administrative duties. And the kind of time that they had to do academic, sitting with the teachers and training, was very less. So we kind of divided academic coordinators and administrative coordinators as two different groups. That allowed us some leeway into doing this. That's
I think what you're getting into is how you got about doing it.
Yeah.
But what I'm picking up from what you said is that you brought in the change and are actually integrating PBL into your everyday learning. That's what you managed to do in your school.
Right.
Hold on to the solutions. I'll just come to that. But I just want to go straight. I'll come to your solution. But before that, I just want to come to you, ma'am. The two words are picked up from Devidutta are the fact that it cannot be co-curricular, it has to be part of regular mainstream, and he also mentioned that the parents' buy-in is important. Now, you're senior principal, you're obviously the academic head of the school, involved deeply in the whole curricular activities. Simple question, is this possible in a real school running life? Or are there challenges?
Yes, first of all, I would like to say that yes, certainly it is possible, first of all. And it's good that at such platforms things are now being discussed in detail. How affirmation is coming from like-minded people and how the word is also reaching, how discussion is happening, why discussion is happening, it's all important actually. So many of us have been doing it, but maybe not in a very structured manner. We were just taking it a chart paper or something like that and considering it as a project. Whereas now the meanings of project work or project-based learning has, to some extent I feel, has changed. Why? Because earlier we were just giving a kind of limited information, knowledge to the student. Now the child or the student is really having a hands-on kind of a thing, experience. Because like if I show that picture, that how we had taken one project which was involving students from different classes, that titled as Education Through Monuments. Jaipur, which is a city which is called a heritage city, not exactly, but still it is. And it has its own flavor as well, because this city has very good monuments. We picked up Albert Museum Hall, and it has its history, it has its geography, it has its mathematics, it has its all sciences, it has literature in it. There is so much of it. Now comes, of course I'm not here discussing the steps those involved, but actually students going and doing. Initially, when I asked my staff, there was a resistance. There was this problem that how are we going to connect it with the syllabus? What will be the impact of it? How much time the students would be able to devote, or they're being skeptical about certain things. So these barriers as educators, we all as administrators and head of institutions, as coordinators, we have to break. And of course, give them this belief that yes, things are possible. Then of course, for that, the step is required first of all, orientation. Right. Naturally, the staff, the teachers have to have a proper orientation. Then the willingness comes gradually, because students are ready to have any kind of thing. Not every student, but most of the students, they are excited. The moment when Vardhan said to us that stand up everyone, and stand up means as if we have been asked something, and then we were waiting that this next stand up is going to be for what purpose, right? And then the moment he said that okay, face the wall, then like me who did not have a wall, had a window, so of course was more interested in looking outside. Maybe the purpose was lost, or maybe quickly he was able to grab the attention that you just don't have to keep looking outside indirectly, bringing to the point that what is the objective. So the objectives have to be very clear, and when we divide and do the duties and responsibilities at that time also, and making the specific things, that means the objectives also have to be very clear, because this is what is the kind of that the children are becoming, or every child is nurturing a kind of incubation center within himself or herself, that okay, this is the idea. We have seen Albert Museum, they must have passed around that Albert Museum earlier also, but then changing their perspective was one thing. Then, of course, telling them that it has this, and not just telling, but asking them what do you see. That means somewhere that curiosity was built up. Sure. So these are the things that we naturally have to take up in projects as well. And as you talked about or asked about, as well as David has also said, what are the challenges? yes, certainly the first challenge starts right from in-house, that is from the staff, the teachers. Then comes the constraint of syllabus, but then again we have to very smartly have to connect it with different subjects. And yes, my friend Devidutta has already said that we have to reflect somewhere in the report card, is somewhere we have to give some kind of advantage, leverage to the student, that okay, you have done this, so this is what is there. Again, the community also. The community also, and of course when we do these things in slight sensitized manner, keeping the community in confidence, by community certainly I mean naturally the parents as well as the people around, those who are there, and once they are involved in the process, yes, they want to see something, and of course a picture like this is something that comes out. Otherwise there are a lot of challenges.
Sure. So David, does this kind of resonate with what you did to try and solve? Because you mentioned specifically about a parent's mindset and the fact that the parent is so excited when they see an art exhibition but not really as. So if something like this were to be done, would that resonate with the way the parents would allow?
Obviously, yes. Within the constraints of making sure that it is as connected to the lesson and the learning objectives that we have for the year, and not being artificially created beyond the boundary. So I just kind of qualify that a little bit to say that to make sure that this takes good speed. The only way that I found is that to make sure that whatever projects that we are doing are taking the story of our learning forward and not as an addendum to that.
Got it. So it's not an add-on, it's integrated into it. So Colonel Satya, this is where I want to come to you, because I think you said you are representing the Narayana Group.
Yes.
And Narayana Group is famous for just pumping in academics into the student, right? There's a lot of emphasis on academics and marks and academic rigor. So much so that the parents of your children would ideally be saying, why have to make this child study for another 2 hours in the class? Is that right? I mean, I got it wrong. So if that is the case, and you're also mentioning that you believe in PBL, or do you believe that this is the way to do it?
Okay. Well, I've been in this for 20 years, and we built an ecosystem when we started. One school, yes, we struggled to set it up, an IB school, when we were in the learning process, coming back to the army. But when we started the second school in Hyderabad, we realized that any institution and organization must have an ecosystem. And that ecosystem should serve the clients whom we are going to. One is the student, one is the teachers, and one is the parents. So just to keep that in mind all the time, and it goes from top down. In the sense, the first man believed in it, the last person believed in it. So we said to serve, to learn, and to lead. To serve, we built a community school. To learn, we have a teacher training institute. To lead, we have a leadership school. That is the process we started. And to serve all these 3 clients, that is students, teachers, how we did it, that's the modalities which I can, but then I think it won't take a lot of time. But it is successful. That is the one. Having done that, since I knew Dr. Narayana for the last 15 years, he wanted me to come and do some changes and start new schools. His vision is to start a new segment of schools, that is the premium schools and IB schools. I know what the model they've been following. They have around 460 schools pan-India and 300 odd junior colleges. So this is where my expertise has been looked into as to how to upgrade these schools and bring in these systems at a smaller step. And that's what I'm doing presently. You know, and also we have in the pipeline around 4 schools in the offering, which the construction has just started. But yes, like you said, Narayana has a different model altogether. Completely. From nursery to 5 is a normal school, but from 6 onwards it's an integrated program which they have designed and has been successful throughout the last 45 years.
Sure.
Okay. But yes, now the time has come where things need to change. Of course, they need to be the NCF talks about a lot of things on holistic education and everything. But we are trying to create these small steps to see how we can change the system. And like you said, we target middle class and lower middle class. And our fee structure is presently around 77,000 in the average fees. So it is possible. I know there are parents, because anything we need to start something, financial is required, financial expenses are there. Parents are not going to give us that money, it has to be from different sources.
Right.
We have been doing our work since the last 6 months. I've been at it, visiting schools, looking at infrastructure, looking at resources, looking at teachers for training quality. And so we are now working on blueprint. It will take time.
Sure.
It's not going to be overnight.
So what we're picking up is that the group has followed a certain structure for a very, very long time.
Right, yes.
Has started to realize that this needs to be
ecosystem is required.
There's a challenge. You have to challenge this, let's say, the beaten track and move away from into this whole creative area that we're talking about. This is what you're realizing.
Yes.
You're also admitting that there are challenges which has to slowly start as baby steps and change it. Now, interestingly, there are two of you who come from the defense background. Captain Jasprit Kaur, incidentally, is also from the army. And both of you believe in routine, structures, discipline, regimentation. So now, is it really, I mean, he mentions that there is a way that you can undo some things and restart or rather make that change. Is that really possible in a structure which is already preset for so many years? I mean, if a school is so set and realizes that, okay, one fine morning we need to bring in PBL into the learning curriculum, is it possible to switch off and restart, or is there any method that one can do to integrate and parallelly introduce that structure?
Whichever we start, PBL is a new approach. In our schools, if I don't talk about the IB schools and if I focus on the big chunk in our country, the CBSE so-called traditional oriented schools, they feel the PBL for them it is a new approach. And what Vardhan sir has just showed it in a slide is actually the core, you know. If every teacher in our rural area, if she can able to understand that slide, the slide was the first page of a dancer's file. What is the difference between a problem, experiential and PBL? Because we as teachers in that simple CBSE schools have started thinking what the opening statement here was कि co-curricular activities करा लिया, so we have done a bit. And the second thing is, now I come to the second point, is that PBL अगर introduce कराना है, what does everyone start feeling? 9th to 12th में कराना है, where there are no routines. Our objective is totally different. We have to prepare our students for our society, and unfortunately our population in our country is that to have an edge over the others, we need to compete. So that is not the right audience to start with the PBL. So our PBL is required with the routines. So, and routine, where is it already existing in our schools? It is existing at the pre-primary level. It is already available. Only thing is we are not able to tap those routines, those disciplines, and have a mindset that 4-year child is already available, he is most creative, he is full of energies, he is already have got so diverse thinking. Why can't we start doing these PBLs at that level? So that is what is my take on this is, if you are starting a new thing in a school, it requires lot of persistence, it requires lot of follow-up, and my sir will agree with me. If anything has to go, whatever I started in my groups 5 years back, believe you me, it took me more than 3 years just to fight with the mindset. What sir said, IB school, only difference between an IB school and CBSE school is adapting to a change. और कोई problem नहीं होता. There is no problem in the processes. Processes are very beautifully laid by people like Vardhan, Akshat sir, Parminder sir. बहुत प्यार से लिखे हुए हैं इन लोगों ने. But a CBSE teacher will not accept those changes, and IB school teacher will immediately accept their changes. So the target time was only unrealistic thing.
So on that point, since you mentioned CBSE and IB, and this is open to all of you, is there a, okay, this is going to be sensitive, a little touchy, but are we having a challenge simply because the, what's the word, the gentry of the teacher for an IB is probably different from the
We
gentry
are
of the
already
teacher for
empowered
the,
with the resources.
right? Now, so
Yeah,
is there a
teacher student well.
It is not that the resources are not available in CBSE schools. It's not that.
okay.
So resources are there, teacher competency is also not lacking. It's actually the ecosystem that really starts getting into a kind of routine, and then they start thinking that CBSE means just complete the syllabus. And of course now, as per latest things as guidelines as well, there's no such word as co-scholastic or co-curricular activities. Every activity a student does in the school is a curricular activity. Because if you do something that you call, even if it is a dance class, it is not supposed to be a co-curricular, or any such activity is not co-curricular. It's a curricular, it's a part of curriculum. But how teachers connect it to the curriculum is again a challenging thing. And moreover, what we are lacking in CBSE schools, the persistence we are lacking. That one project we do, and then there is a full stop and we switch over again to the routine. That persistence has to be there, that continuity has to be there, the things have to be in that place that, okay, every work that at least till class 10, there is no stopping to any one of us. CBSE does not at all mention that you go by these standards only. CBSE very clearly states that you do the way you want to. And I think that puts us all apart from X school, Y school, Z school.
Confused board of secondary education.
No.
But they
I just have one point.
Yeah.
I just have one point on that. When you say the difference between the IB and
Sure.
CBSE, since I am now party to the CBSE in the last 1 year, I think it is the change mindset. People don't want to change at this stage in the CBSE. That's one. Secondly is when you prepare scheduling for the school or a timetable, or they don't want to change it. They don't want. The teachers have no flexibility in creating that change. It is whether the head of school, coordinator, they have to go through so many things, and finally the principal has to give. But when in IB, the teacher is the first one to change it. She can change it. She can make a lesson plan the way she wants it. It just goes through checks, that's all, checks and balances. But the teacher has the right to understand and say what I want to teach in the classroom.
Kanungo, I would like to defer here. Sir,
Okay, finally a debate. Yes.
See, it's not that it's not the right thing to categorize and just give a dog a bad name and kill it. Not all CBSE teachers are that kind, sir. They also need a lot of training. They also need a lot of change in their mindset, certainly. But what are our training colleges, teacher education colleges are doing? Are they preparing, incorporating that kind of mindset in them? Are they preparing them how to plan a lesson in a rigorous manner? That also has to be seen. It's not that, sir, it's not that all CBSE school teachers are
We're not
that
doing
same.
that.
No one is there.
Yes, there are people, those who are changing. Yes, there are the schools which are, shifting from, of course, from the CBSE school, partly starting having IB schools, Cambridge and other boards we have started thinking of. So that's not that, it's only thing that teachers need a lot more guidance, teacher needs a lot more counseling, teacher needs more monitoring, teacher has to be given more autonomy as well, and of course persistent and continuous monitoring on the teacher to reflect, to go on their feedback mechanism again and again with the teachers of CBSE schools as well as with any other school, I believe.
Any major differentiator to what you're saying here? I'll just come to you. Anything major that you want to...
What I'm saying is, everything within the school, it's not external. Why should we depend on external people to train us, to change our attitude, the mindset? It is within us.
No, I don't think she said that. She just said training is required. I don't think she said whether it's from outside or within.
That is within the principles.
Got it. Understood. Yeah, there you go.
So I completely agree that the issue is not so much as availability of resources, but a certain mindset. So the mindset is fed by the regular structures of the school. See, if you are expecting a teacher to learn something and you have given 32-period workload to that teacher and then she has to 5 sections का notebook checking करना है, तो हो गया ना? So there is nothing going to happen. So there are certain very small things I think we can do in the regular structure to be able to get things going. So one first important thing is to cut out a certain period for academic planning meetings which are transdisciplinary in nature. I have at least, I don't know if you have had different experience, but all academic planning meetings that I have seen in CBSE schools are individual, though teachers of certain subjects sitting with the coordinator on ye padhane wale. There is no, in that meeting there is no art teacher, there is no ICT teacher, there is no sports teacher.
Collaborative way of
There is none of these people sitting and discussing anything. So, if these teachers are not sitting, how do you expect in a IB, PYP collaborative planning meeting? It is a mandatory part. Integration is mandatory. So that culture has to be built in. So even just this one step that we took in my school, कि भाई हफ्ते में 2 घंटे compulsory आपको करना ही पड़ेगा. Every teacher for that grade level has to sit. Brought about a huge difference. Second thing is you have to tap into your available neural networks, which means what? That, see, what are the important things? Parents already think that exam is important. The teachers also think that the exam is important. You know it is what it is, but if there's something they already feel that important, tap into it. So what we said is, why 50% mark is PBL, right? That now everybody thinks that's the most important thing, because वो 2 minute पहले was co-curricular. The moment you say कि 50% of maths is through your project, suddenly it's become important for the parent, important for the coordinator, important for the principal. Everybody thinks it's the most important thing in the world. So you kind of create a sense of urgency. You are able to create by just doing that कि भाई report card में 50% weightage on PBL. So one of the things is to create, tap into what is already existing neural networks in the school.
So, but while that is a great idea, practically, do people in CBSE take the step and actually do it? Because I know it's a very accepted thing in the IB school. Let's assume just we want to just introduce 50% in the mark sheet for project-based learning. Is that something you can tomorrow get up and say, okay, now let's do this?
No, I'm sorry, because that's where the mindset comes in, Yeah, that's why the mindset, what we have been struggling is that I want to
the mindset at what level? Mindset at the promoter level?
And the parent? Like I want PBL to get incorporated in my school, and I want to make it this discovery approach as a part of my pedagogy. Now the point is, my assessments is not in my hand, distribution is not in my hand. What I have done is, this 20 marks, which is an internal assessment, out of this 20 marks, I am going to give 15 marks for my PBL, and it has to be documented right from the word go, selection of the topic till the follow-ups, and that format which has to be done of the call cycle has to be implemented, documented, then only you get those 15 marks. I can't create that urgency all of a sudden, because that is something which is not within me, but yes, 20 marks is within my control. For that, I can play and put those riders on my teachers. Ki please, out of this 15, only if this process is complete of the call cycle and if the students are writing it on a format and the topic selected is non-Googleable. This is the biggest rider which I give it to my teachers, that when you are writing the driving question, because what is the difference, which is going to come in that problem based till reaching to a exit ticket of a project based, it all depends on the quality of the driving question. And the second thing which I have done as my best practice without changing the structure of my school was, fete happens in every school, excursions happens in every school, but excursions right from the time of the planning is been totally done by the students. The red flags, the yellow flags, the SOPs are all have to be framed during the club activities by the students. So where to go, how to go, what is the itinerary, how much money has to be done. This I start using that excursions as a part of this, and then coming back and writing the report that right from the time you did the planning, you went and visited. So what the IBs follow is before, during and after. I took that before, during and after in my CBSE format like this and converted a folder. The project which will come to me, report which comes to me will be almost 2 months later. Why 2 months later is 15-20 days or 1 month before the session. That is the day which it has to go. The day they visited, they will write the empathy map, and then after 1 month, what did they did, how did they incorporated what they learned in that fort, and how they are going to incorporate. So within my own constraints, I try to, I know all the pedagogies of IB school, so how can I use that into this and the report which is going to carry the marks. So excursion was not a leisure, it was a like travel to an agriculture form, what is nowadays the buzzword also, the educational adventure tourism.
Correct.
So that's what I'm just trying to do here.
This is very, very useful stuff. So Kamaljeet ma'am, so what she's saying is that if you were to take students to this monument, you would also back the fact that the students will start doing the planning, the questions that come from the students, or do you think that the teacher should put the entire thing through and
No, teachers should not do the entire thing. Teachers can initiate and then involve the students because it's a teamwork.
Good, fair.
It's a teamwork.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the teacher is also supposed to be, as well as I believe, is a learner.
Sure.
Every time there is something new that comes. I remember one of my teacher when I was doing post-graduation. My teacher said that there was a professor in England and he used to teach Hamlet, the play. He taught for more than 40 years and his ultimate finding was, he said that every time in my 40 years, whenever I had left a class, I found there was something new that was talked, discussed in the class from Hamlet. So the teacher is also a learner. The teacher also has to be a part of the plan. The teacher has to see that whether the steps, the things are being followed as well, because intervention is required. The teacher's work becomes as to intervene what is working, what is not working, and how the dynamics of the team also has to be developed, and ultimately how the things will be put up, what is going to be the ownership amongst the students, and what actions are they going to take, what is going to be the reflection on their part, and how the things can be taken maybe in the times to come.
Well, I think it's a
Schools must accept student agency and teacher agency.
student agency and teacher agency. Okay. No, I think it's a pity that just as the conversations are starting to get exciting, the clock starts to remind you that it's time for lunch and we need to wind up and we have to. But I think fantastic points for all of you. I hope I do some justice. I'm just putting some keywords which I picked up from the four of you. Yeah, I'll come to the audience and I'll come to the rest of you in a second. So one clearly cannot be co-curricular. It has to be part of regular mainstream. I liked what Devidutta said. You said that it cannot be a tag-on. It has to be integrated. I think that's very good. Two, I think everybody is clearly stating that there are challenges. And you know, I really enjoyed the fact that you mentioned this, sir, because the fact is that for a Narayana group to actually admit this is not easy. And the very fact that you've said it, it reflects that you are trying to kind of keep pace with the times. And the challenges clearly has mindsets for both parents, teachers. I don't think the students have any mindset. I think they'll love this. So I don't think they'll have a mindset as long as you guide them through this. I think the concept of unlearning and relearning is something that all chains of schools can pick up from what Colonel said. And out there, I think there are two points where I found both of you having a very subtle conflict. Both of you agree that, so one, you mentioned that teachers would love to do it, just that they're not being given the empowerment to do it. And you mentioned that teachers may not be able to do it unless they are trained. And you mentioned that the training can be in-house, which is fine. So I think as long as the mindset starts to change from the top, and then it starts to percolate down, the last mile will obviously adapt. And once you adapt, I think the concept of upskill might have to be brought in. And when the concept of upskill has to be brought in, I think you then have to figure out if there is competency to take up that upskill. If the competency is not there, then of course we don't want to get into that discussion. But if the upskill is going to happen and they're ready to soak it in, then I think that's the best thing that one should do. Clearly, some interesting points. Projects versus project-based learning. These are two very different things. Jaspreet, you mentioned about how it's normally been pushed into the 9th to 12th grades, but ideally you should even start it much earlier, catch them young as you call it, or catch them younger as you call it. I think that's an important point. Empowering the teachers. So once you train them, empower them. So the whole concept of empowerment, responsibility and accountability. So eventually if you're giving empowerment, might as well make them accountable, for which you have to give them the responsibility to do it. And that's where I think you mentioned about this very interesting point of 50% PBL marks, which Jaspreet beautifully said that even if it's not possible in the current realm, if there is something in your hand that you can tweak. So if you've got a 20 marks with you that you can tweak and further position it the way you want, that is something that I think all of us can pick up as a good hint to try and do it. You mentioned about the fee structures of 77,000 and therefore the importance of how money might be required. I must request all of you to spend some time with Parminder. I had a chat with Parminder in the morning during breakfast, and according to him, there is no connection to financial economic resources as much as one would want to. As long as the mindset is there, I believe this change can happen. So probably you could give a little insight later, one-to-one during lunch, as to how this can be done even without really investing much money into it, which is what I thought you probably are alluding to. I think that's kind of the few points that I picked up. Now I can open up to anyone who wants to say something. We can have another 5 minutes, Vardhan, and then we can wind up.
One of us say that the summarizing was excellent.
Oh. Thank you.
I think you covered the part what I was about to mention of end of the day, it all percolates from top to bottom. If we have a vision and if as the entire ecosystem, as Sir mentioned, sticks to that ecosystem, irrespective of what happens, changes always happen from top to bottom. Very rarely have I seen a teacher initiating something that goes up and then there are major changes happening in the organization. So, and this I can see because I recently moved from NCR and the mindset I've seen there of people, the stakeholders, including the children, and what I see here in Jaipur, it's two extremes, two different parts of the world. And I know it's going to take time and eventually we will reach where we will. But till that time, I think empowering teachers and also empowering your leadership team to just go with that vision is what is more important. Because if the promoters do not believe in the bigger vision, I think as the entire structure, it's going to collapse eventually today or tomorrow.
And I forgot to mention one important point, which I loved what Devidutta said, that if you are able to collaborate mainstream subject matter teachers with the other teachers, so having a sports teacher sit with, let's say, a physics teacher, for example, could just come out with that perfect blend of how to pick out a point which can help the academics go forward in a project-based method. So I forgot to mention that.
If I may add one
Yeah,
point,
please.
You were talking about starting early. So in my school, we are doing a project-based display on this Saturday, where children are 200 rupees, but the money which is created in the art classes by the children. So they will take that money, they will then go and buy Rakhi, or they will buy Tiranga or Tiranga at home, and these Rakhis and Tirangas are prepared by children during art and craft class, and then they will, the money which they will pay to different counters, it will be deposited back by the children, those who are on those counters, to the team which is event organizing. They will match how much they issued from the bank and how much has come back, and class 3, 4, 5 is doing it together.
Sure. So just bear in mind a very important point that Vardhan mentioned, which is that there has to be an output.
Yeah.
And it has to be for a kind of a public good. That, just keep putting these two.
So we told parents that in an orientation that when you come, try to bargain with children, that your MRP says 20 rupees, I am left with only 10. So see how they negotiate, and we did an orientation with children also.
All of you who were there in the morning session of Super 30 Anand mentioned exactly this, right? The children are now encouraged to, in this times, hard times, encouraged to go out and actually do this work. No, but I think, you want to say something? This last one?
I have a question to ask. Like, in the question of anyone from the bank, in the question of, like, say for example, the curriculum as such right now is your jack of all, master of none. Whereas PBL, what it wants to enable is that if you're picking up any topic, you go into the deep core of it, understand all the concepts very thoroughly, which you'll probably not forget in your entire life. So how? Like, for example, if a kid is spending 3 to 4 months on understanding one topic in very detail, there is a limited bandwidth which the kid will have, and he will have to not focus a little bit on some of the other topics. How do we think of the balance of that?
Can I answer that?
Yeah,
Sure.
that's what
See, this is the first important thing that you have to understand in PBL is that journey is more important than the destination. Which means that you have to let go of the fact that there will be some kids who will not touch some concepts at all, and you have to live with it. And you have to live with the fact.
Sorry, we have a situation. Sorry, so I think Colonel needs to leave. So first of all, I must say the last word that thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Kamaljeet ma'am, Jaspreet and Devidutta. I think fantastic. A round of applause for all. Thank you very much. And great topic. Yeah, sorry. Now you can.
Sorry. Thank you very much. I've got to get to the airport. That's right.
Thank you.
So I think that's the important thing that so when we make up PBL, I think one of the things that we have to ensure is that if there are certain very critical topics that we want, maths may, let's say, there are certain 4 things that you want the children should learn, then those should be taken as standards. And we should be happy with those topics that we are okay, like, because say, suppose for example, if I'm doing a project-based learning on, let's say, World War II, right? There is a chance that the child will go completely into Greece and never touch Germany at all. Right? There is possibility. And you have to, as a teacher, be okay with it. If a teacher is saying, "Can you to Hitler padhai nahi," then it might become a problem. Right? So that is when we are designing PBLs, I think that is the important thing, that we have to understand that journey and the destination might be equally important. I don't know if that
so just sorry to cut in, Devidutta. So I think we continue the conversations over lunch. It's a never-ending conversation, and it should be. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you so much, Vinesh, for hosting us and everyone participating. That's the end of our track. Have a great lunch, and we see you downstairs.
Thank you.